I'm actually really happy that Adam brought up that Richard Dawkins quote, because it reminded me of something I forgot to bring up in my speech. Even if evolution had no evidence, we would still refer to other alternatives. This quote is actually in a different context for me than the study from nature and the Christopher Hitchens comment that he quoted. I, in fact, disagree with the author of the study from nature. I did not assert in my arguments from the beginning as an assumption that God did not exist. In fact, I quite deliberately left the question open. I said, if there is extraordinary evidence, we can accept that God exists. I make no claim that it is excluded from the beginning. What I said is that because of the nature of the claim, because of the consequences of the claim, we should expect an extraordinary amount of evidence for it, none of which has been provided yet. But the Richard Dawkins quote is actually very interesting. The reason that if evolution had no physical evidence, we should prefer it over others, is that we abhor the idea that extremely complex things can exist without purpose. Evolution, not without purpose, but without consequence, without cause. Evolution is the only postulated theory which says that simple things become complex things and explains the mechanisms for simple things becoming complex things, right? Adam's response to this, Adam's alternative to this, is that a complex thing existed from the very beginning. So what Richard was saying in that quote, and I quite agree with, is that because of the nature of evolution, because we find it more improbable to think that an extremely complex being exists for no reason than we do to think that extremely simple matter exists for no reason, we should prefer evolution because it is the less improbable scenario. That is the context of the quote. As for other quotes which say that we should exclude religion from the get-go, I disagree with them completely. To my mind, it's not true. The scientific method can be applied to many things, and it can be applied to supernatural claims. We can test them. We can test whether you can douse your water. We can and have test whether or not prayer can heal people. We have done so, and the tests have proven, or at least have been inconclusive, and when they have been conclusive, they've been conclusive on my side of the house. They have shown no evidence whatsoever for the miraculous. And I assure you that this will continue going after future tests and are done. So I want to recap what we've talked about today, right? From a very like basic level. What I have said, I have brought forward evidence. I have told you, for example, that the Earth is billions of light years away from stars that we can detect with telescopes. The light took that amount of time to get here. The stars act as if, the sky acts as if it was earlier when we see it farther away. It acts exactly as we would expect it to under my model. Adam's response to this, Adam's alternative to this is essentially that there exists a God who must really, really like screwing with astronomers. These people who devote their entire lives to studying these stars, which are billions of light years away, so far away that the stars that we see could never have existed in Adam's worldview. So when he says that we agree on whether or not stars exist, that's actually not true. Under young Earth creationism, I understand no reason to even believe under that model that stars exist in the first place. How can you believe stars exist if the light coming, if you believe that the universe is younger than the light coming to you from them? Surely there's some kind of projection made by God. There's no reason to believe. If you think the universe is 6,000 years old, you can't believe in something that existed 13 billion years ago. There's no reason to do it. So no, Adam doesn't believe in stars, contrary to what he has said. We've also talked about the extreme evidence for evolution. I've talked about the fossil record, not very in depth. I've talked about endogenous retroviruses. Adam's response to this, Adam's alternative to this, is to say there must be a God who really, really must like screwing with biologists, who really, really must like screwing with geneticists. There must be a God who really, really likes making scientists do all these little things to investigate claims that simply aren't true. He's just designed a universe that looks exactly like they were true. That's the alternative. That's the choice you have to make today when walking out of this room and deciding which side of the house to follow. Every small amount of evidence falls for the idea that there is no God, or at the very least that there is no reason to believe in one now. I think I've demonstrated that. I hope I've demonstrated that fairly enough. I hope, I beg you for this, I ask you for this, I hope you believe me when I say that nowhere in my statements did I assume that God did not exist in my arguments. I don't know any instance when I did that. Please call me on it if I did. But that was Adam's assertion. That was, in fact, basically his entire 10-minute rebuttal. I don't claim that as a priori assumption. I don't claim it on faith. I'm open to the question of whether or not God exists, but every piece of evidence suggests that he does not, and so I don't believe him. Thank you.